welcome everyone. You are watching Merritt in the Morning. Jim, this is number 29. Or not 29, 22. Number 22. 29's coming. So, he is your host, Jim Merritt. I'm Brad Klopfenstein. For better or for worse, I control the buttons. We are coming to you live this morning from Cafe Audrey at beautiful Fort Harrison. Open for breakfast and lunch 7 days a week. Beer and wine is available. Remember, hashtag food at the fort and hashtag why I love Lawrence. Chip, watch the slides as we go through this. I gave them an animation. Ooh, fancy. We're also brought to you by Alps Brau beer. Remember, it's so very, very Bavarian. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Stockyards Bank and Trust, Central Indiana locations at 71st and Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, and on the south side in St. Francis Hospital. This week, there's going to be a theme. We have a new sponsor, the Honey Baked Ham Company, locations at 96th and Michigan Road and Greyhound Pass, and that's basically 31, Keystone,
Carmel Westfield.
You Northsiders know where it is.
Across from Menards.
Okay, that's the easiest way to find it. So, there we go. Now, here's us. You can see us. So today, now, this is kind of a happy coincidence. That didn't look real clear. We'll have to deal with it. Our guest today, Mike Kalb, co-owner of the Honey Baked Ham Company, as witnessed in the slide earlier. Mike has been a friend of mine for years and years, longer years than we'd like to admit. And he likes the show. But we also, this came about because we wanted to bring him on and just talk about the ham business, his business. We're going to talk about beer in a little bit because, Jim, you may or may not know this. Mike Kalb was there from the beginning of the new incarnation of Alps Brau beer.
I didn't know that.
The very beginning. So we're going to tell that story and have Mike tell his perspective. And then we're going to talk politics because Mike and I are libertarians.
We are.
Well, it's interesting. We've talked a lot on this program about the challenges to small business and how they incentivize employees to come work for them and to keep them. And you've got a great name, and I think our audience would love to hear your experience for countless years now as a small business,
Close to 30.
Wow.
So how did you get it? Start from the beginning. How did you get into this business?
At the time, it was a situation where I was working in retail. I had worked for Z-Bar and CMC Stereo, and I remember those guys. Working 80 hours a week, close to it, and working for somebody else, I kind of got tired of it, and I said, I really need to, if I'm going to do these kind of hours, I want to do something for myself and to build something. And so we checked into different franchises. There was hair cutting. There was Subway, of course, at the time. This is in the 1990s.
Right.
And we had all the information, kind of put it in the corner. And then I got a phone call from Atlanta. A lady said, well, we have an interesting situation in Indianapolis. We have owners that have been with us since 1985 who are ready to sell. So long story short, we picked up a business that was already going and just tried to take it to the next level.
So you purchased a franchise?
Purchased two. Actually, at the time, we purchased two, and then within 1 year, we opened up a third.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was when we were Heavenly Ham, when Honey Baked Ham came in and bought back basically the Heavenly Ham franchises. They asked us to close one of them, and we said, well, we'd like you to pay us to close it, and they did. And so the one in Caston we had at 82nd and Allisonville was then closed because it was too close to the corporate store.
Mm-hmm.
That's 65th and Keystone.
That's world famous, 65th and Keystone.
It's an icon.
Isn't it the fourth?
It's like the fourth store that Honey Baked Ham ever opened, store number 4, and it's been in the same location. And it's always fun to tell that the 65th and Keystone was basically outside the city limits at the time in the 50s, early 60s when it was open. So
it was
that area,
suburbia.
Yeah, that was the suburbs.
So did you ever think that you were going to be the ham king of Central Indiana?
When I went to IU, graduated in '82, and I had a degree in broadcasting. And I went out, took my sheepskin, and I went and knocked on doors of RTV and the radio stations, and they said, "Sure, we'd love to have you, but you're going to start a minimum wage." And at the time, trying to have an apartment, and I'm from Fort Wayne originally, and if I wanted to live in Indy, I needed to make a little bit more than minimum wage.
It's like $1.75 back then.
So I went in.
Probably pretty close to that.
I went into retail sales because my father was a sales rep for quality control inspection equipment, and he always said that sales is great because your income is unlimited.
Mhm.
It's only limited by how
Your
much
effort.
you want to work.
Mhm. Yeah. So, all right. So you transitioned into the ham business, and you got there and said, "What do I know about ham?"
Well, I learned a lot in the very first 2 years. Luckily, the former owners had passed on a lot of philosophical information. Indianapolis is a very German-Irish area, and the celebrations, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, were surrounded by the food. I mean, they were actually driven that way, and we never lost sight of the one that brought us to the party, and that was the honey baked or the heavenly ham.
Right.
And so when they started introducing things like lunch and cafe seating and that kind of thing, we're all like, okay, that's great, but we can't lose sight of the hero.
So for people who are not familiar, what is your business model? I think most people are familiar with your carry-out hams, but you guys do a whole lot more than that.
We do catering, box lunches. I like to say we were our company. I didn't own it at the time, but the box lunch that people take to the 500 was invented by Heavenly Ham. Kroger then picked it up and ran with it, but the former owners actually had a really good business with that. Then the business model at the Speedway changed, and they started to require royalties to be paid and that kind of thing. So we really couldn't afford to keep doing business out there. But we used to do 1,000, 1,500 box lunches for people going to the race. Right now, we are trying to increase our lunch business because that's in between holidays, and it does help keep the lights on and keep the employees working. But our business model is still 60-70% of the carry out meat.
My sister's parents, my in-laws, sent me a ham, sent us a ham for Christmas season, and I drove all the way up to 14631 to the office across the street from Menards just for the mustard.
That mustard.
That mustard, the sweet mustard. And the recipes have got to be a secret.
It's not really that hard to find a recipe for honey mustard.
But it's not something you go to the grocery store and get.
It's not easy to make.
No.
Is the issue.
So that's a valuable recipe. I'm sure there are others. And you also sell bread,
You can do
Hawaiian.
Do your own. Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to come in and not have a sandwich and just take the makings home with you, love to help you with that.
We're talking to Mike Kalb of Honey Baked Ham. Before we get into politics and beer and other
New
things.
sponsor.
New sponsor, and also a friend of the show, been a long time friend of the show.
We're happy.
So your product mix, you said you're about 60% carry out hams. Of that other 40, how much of that is on-premise dining, where they order there, eat there, and how much of that is catering?
About 20% or half of that is people coming in and eating. And actually, we're kind of a well-kept secret. Our store at 96 in Michigan was frequented. I can say this now because he's not with us. He's not in the city anymore. But Peyton Manning used to be one of our regulars, strictly because he didn't. And I even talked to him about it. Strictly because we didn't have people that were always coming up and asking for autographs and biscuits. Okay, that's kind of a I like to come to your place because you're so slow. Okay, well, but 20% or half of the 40 is dine in, and occasionally we do fill all of our seats.
How many employees do you have?
Regular employees 12.
Well,
between the two stores and the office staff, and my lovely marketing director who couldn't be with us today.
That's your wife, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you, whenever I walk into Honey Baked Ham and I go into 96 and Michigan Road, as well as the Carmel Westfield store, 31 and 146th Street, they are so nice. And that is the key to retail now, is serving the customer. This is age old, but it's even more important today. And how do you keep that quality of, I hate to say this, quality of labor force?
Well, we do try very hard. We're not perfect. I'll be the first to admit it. Our customers have a high expectation, and so they're constantly driving us to do better. I think the main thing that we do that helps that is we're a family business. So my daughter is the manager of the store at 146th and 31, and my son and I work in the office, and we're right next door to the one in 96th of Michigan. So, so putting up a practice what you preach. That's what my dad always said. So, if you can't ask an employee to do something that you wouldn't do yourself.
Yeah, it's like managing by walking around.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, and not acting all aloof, as a leader, as the owner, you shouldn't be giving yourself perks that you wouldn't give to the employees. That's, I think,
That's
one of the most important.
Quality.
Yep.
Quality.
So in your 30 years in the business, how have you seen your business change and pivot? And really in the last 4 years, how have you had to adjust? And what are the changes you've seen just in the industry and consumers? And where do you have to be now?
One of the things I love about my wife, Amy, in our marketing department is that she's a customer advocate, very strong. So when it comes to things like inflation, price increases, things like that, she's always there to remind us that, the customer is really the one that provides the living that we have. So what we've seen in the last 2 years, I'll say, is with inflationary pressures, our costs are you can actually see, and we're tied to the pork prices. And pork prices have spiked in the last couple of years, but they're moderated now. And we knew that was coming. I think inflation is a lot in people's minds. Businesses, I think, knee jerk and increase prices unnecessarily sometimes. We did have to increase a little. We did not increase as much as the franchisor asked us to. That can set us up for a little bit of contention with them. But as I suspected, the prices are now coming down. What I really would love to see, if we do have inflation and we do see increased costs, I would love to see that money go to the farmers.
Where do you get your product?
Well, the business, because we buy just a part of a pig, the business is set up so that you don't really know where. I mean, the producer knows where it came from because there's a lot of controls on that these days. But I'll say North Carolina, Iowa, Indiana, those are probably 3 of the biggest pork producing states that there are.
Mm-hmm.
But when things come into the factory, they're already parted out, I guess.
Okay.
So it's hard to always say where it came from. It's domestic.
Yeah.
I know that. We don't get anything from out of the country. But again, the farmers are the ones that suffer, I think, when prices go up and they get a teeny little piece of that.
Definitely on the front line.
And the producers are the ones that and the middlemen are the ones that absorb all the money.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I know that pork farmers are also my customers.
Yeah, sure.
So I have to take it easy on them.
So if anybody can set up on a model where they're basically a commissary and you're buying from corporate and most of your product is coming from them, or do they give you some autonomy to go to a Dugdale or someone else?
I would not be smart if I was going to go outside of Honey Baked as a supplier, because let's face it, the inspections, the quality, it just wouldn't be there. It would not be there. The standard that they apply is something that I'm not big enough to do so.
Yeah.
We do pay a premium for that. and the way our franchise business is set up, they do collect and override.
Yeah, well, you want the gold standard.
But yeah,
That's what we expect as a customer.
right.
So-
I've gone to other places. I've gone to, not at Dugdale, but I've gone to other places and checked it. Yeah, there's no way that I can find something as good as what we already got.
And you mentioned, so they give you some autonomy in your pricing, your retail pricing.
That is, I'm not sure if that's a state law, but it's pretty much the standard that a franchisor cannot dictate what your pricing is going to be.
Okay.
So we take that to heart.
Right.
And, and we like to be, we have to sort of move in the direction of national advertising,
Right.
or that makes us look silly if we don't.
Yeah.
And
That's the whole idea behind franchising is uniformity.
And well, now, Jim, you probably remember from your years at the State House, there used to be that McDonald's that was in Hyatt downtown.
Of course.
And yeah, when McDonald's would run specials and then they had the little disclaimer at the bottom that participating retailers, that McDonald's at the Hyatt was always the non-participating retailer.
well, and I have to admit, we've been there, where we don't participate in certain offers that the corporate stores. But the corporate stores don't have the royalty and advertising fund to pay. So
You have lots of products. What is your special? What is your high selling special?
well, obviously the bone-in ham is our number one. What we've seen in the last since Heavenly introduced it's a boneless ham, which is I call our customer, I call her the hostess.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't always want to deal with excess bone and all that work and all the carving.
Mm-hmm.
So the boneless ham has actually grown more over the years than probably honey baked is comfortable with, because it does cut into the sales of the larger ticket.
So what else do you have on the menu? 'Cause like you say that you've got a dining room and dine in. I assume that's a lot of sandwiches, wraps, that sort of thing.
We have about 12 sandwiches that we do, hot and cold.
Mm-hmm.
A whole line of side dishes. Most of them we make in the store. Soup that we make ourselves. We don't go out and buy bags of soup and pre-made. Like we have a pasta salad that we make ourselves in the store. It's a lot of work, but I think the customers appreciate it. Dessert wise, right now we have just cookies, but we're always looking for new dessert ideas.
My wife, she'd be there every day if you guys had a bread pudding.
Klopp, if you walk in the door at Christmas time in 146 and 31, be ready to stand in line.
I was going to say you won't get in the door.
No, they actually have ropes so you can snake through, and it's quite impressive. And we order and pick up at a time that nobody else is going to be there.
My mom lives about a mile from 96 Michigan, and I know every Thanksgiving and pretty much every holiday is your ham that she's serving.
Mm-hmm.
And
that is one of the things is that Thanksgiving is actually becoming almost as strong as Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Klopp, we like talking small business.
yeah,
Brad is president of the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce and greater.
We're more than just Lawrence.
Yes.
We're out. If you have money you want to give me, we'll take it. Yeah, exactly. There's Northern Hancock has, the Fortville McCordsville area is in a transition period with their chamber. So we've picked up a few members out there. We've got some in Fishers and
we love talking small business. Yeah. And I've learned some things today that it's just, I love to see people challenging the status quo, also taking the risk, because a lot of us are just in this country, in this world, are risk adverse these days. And you've got a strong product too.
And we have a very loyal customer base.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's number one. Mm-hmm. It's our Carmel Westfield store in what we call the span, the area of Midwest, Storage, Michigan. Western Ohio, that area, we are number 1 to number 3.
Now, is it spiral cut? Is that what the term is?
Spiral splicing
Spiral-
was invented by a guy named Harry Henselaar, and he was from Detroit, Michigan. So Detroit is where the company actually started. He never wanted to be in the ham business. He just wanted to collect royalties off of his machine, which was, remember the old car jacks that go click, click,
Yeah.
click? That and a hacksaw and a turntable. That was the
So
original.
we took a record player and a ham and a hacksaw and a jack.
And a
I'm
car
glad
jack.
I had no idea the history behind it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Now, you have how many of those apparatuses in your company?
Well, it used to be if you go to one of those, like the 65th and Keystone store, for example, if you go into the back, you'll see electric cords hanging from the ceiling all over the place. That's where they actually did the slicing that's in the store. Now that has moved into, because of USDA, food safety controls, temperature, that kind of thing. It's all moved in now into the factory. So we received the hams that were already spiral sliced, already cooked, already cut in half, actually. So our responsibility is to apply that signature.
So you don't have
Nice.
equipment or you don't have all that overhead
I couldn't, no, yeah.
and maintenance and everything else.
Yeah, and that is a big deal. I mean, you do have to. I mean, you think about when you've heard about food safety recalls, food safety recalls on, say, for example, ground beef. Most of the time, it happens because the machines haven't.
it's we'll reset for everybody who's watching. You were watching here in the morning with your host, former 30-year state senator. So apparently, based if my math is right, you went into the state senate, Jim, right about the time Mike bought into the ham business. So you guys are
parallel.
Yes, exactly. So like to thank our sponsors, the Honey Baked Ham Company, locations at 96th in Michigan and basically 146th and Greyhound Pass right there in front of Menards. Also want to thank our sponsor, Stockyards Bank and Trust, with locations 71st in Binford, Carmel, downtown, Plainfield, and in St. Francis Hospital. We're also brought to you by Alps Brau beer. So very, very Bavarian, Jim. We got to get the 2 berries in there. About with the Mountain Valley hops. We're coming to you live, if you're watching on Facebook right now, from Cafe Audrey's at beautiful Fort Harrison. Thank you to Cafe Audrey's for being our gracious hosts. So, Mike, now that we've gone over the ham business, I mentioned this to Jim right before we started. So I think most of our viewers know Alps Brau beer is my beer. And so that started about 3 years ago. You were there pretty much from the very beginning. So I want to go over just the beginning of Alps Brau just a little bit because it was mostly a figment of my imagination and somehow it turned out to be a real beer.
Well, the thing I remember most is the number of people that were at the Speakeasy, which is
The speakeasy at my house, a bar.
we don't.
Jim's been there. We don't talk much about it.
We don't. But in being invited up there to help, what we did, taste testing of all these different blind taste testings of all these different beers. And your question to us, the people in attendance, there were probably 25, 30 people there, was when you think of Alps Brau, when you think of the crisp, the flavor, and the fact that I did grow up in Fort Wayne and I probably had an Alps Brau
You might
somewhere or another. What the flavor would be, because the recipe you said was the original recipe was lost.
It was lost to history. Yeah.
So I remember, the form where we wrote everything down.
We still have all those cards.
And we said, okay, this is our favorite. And I thought it was excellent market research. That was a really good way to start the process.
I think we
did well.
Thank you. We had like 14 different beers to sample, Jim. We had 16 or 20 people. I mean, it was a full house. A lot of samples flowing.
It seemed like more, but
yeah,
it was just a little crowded, I guess.
Yes. So it was fun. There was a lot of beer consumed that day.
Yes.
In addition to the samples.
And it was done very carefully. It wasn't, we've done so many, we're just gonna,
Yeah. So
no, there was a process that we definitely went.
Yeah. So my wife Sheila actually came up with scorecards, and They're numbered 1 through 14, and I think you rated them 1 through 5, and then you put notes on each one. And then, so I was out pouring them in the common area, and then she was taking the samples in so that people could score it.
I do still brag about the fact that we were one of the original developers in your venture.
And so far, your investment has paid off to exactly one case of beer coming back your way.
It's great. Well, no, I love, especially when things involve Fort Wayne, I love to see the history come back around. It's a history lesson, not just a beer brand.
Yeah, well, and really from that night, Alps Brau is now in production. That morphed into acquiring the Indianapolis Brewing Company trademark, which we then sold off to somebody who could do it better. And Sun King has now released that, and it's on the market. Did you try one of those yet? It's pretty good.
Yes.
So yeah,
Not as good as Alps.
Not as good as Alps Brau, but for a domestic beer, they did a really good job. But then we've also now got Nickel Plate beer, which hopefully will be in production some point this year. Circle City beer and KG Schmidt's, which is old Logansport beer. So there might be more to come. And I think I've learned, I think I'm going to need to brew it and not farm it out on those others. So
you're looking for a brewery?
Potentially, which is there. Sadly, several of them are closing, which means there's a lot of equipment available. So, but yeah, coming up with a location, Jim, we might have to get a permanent location for Merritt in the morning that's also a brewery.
Yeah, I'm all for it. So but we're very happy at Cafe Auburn.
Yeah, yes, we are. And in fact, Jim, the sure sign that people actually watch this show and care about it, we've now had people request saying, well, why don't you come to my location to do the show?
Yeah. Well, we've been to AJ's.
We've been to the
bar.
Yep.
And that was a terrific experience. And he has quite a practice of incentivizing people to come work for him as well as keeping. And so
That's important these days.
It really is. It's one of the issues of workforce development that should be talked about. It should be discussed inside small business and among small businesses.
Well, I'm proud to say in the last 30 years, I can still count on two hands the number of times I've had to pay out a workforce development claim.
Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
So we love just keep our employees.
Mm-hmm. So how big of a struggle is it now compared to 2 years ago to find staffing? And are you able to keep those people once they come on board?
That's a good question, because I was afraid that people might not want to come out and deal with the public,
Mm-hmm.
After COVID. But what we found is it's not so much. Back in the old days, we used to take out an ad in the Star, a little help wanted ad in the Star, and now it's all social media. And I have found that it's important what social media you're on to ask for help. We do have kind of an interesting position where people are counter help with public, but they're also in the back. So if someone who has some kitchen skills, who maybe doesn't get to use those as much, but would also like to deal with the public because they're a people person, those people I think are attracted to us. And we have had in the last 2 years, we've had no trouble finding employees. Like I said, we're a niche.
Yeah.
We're not, you aren't stuck behind a register unless it's Christmas. You're not stuck behind a register for all day. You have a chance to if you have a soup that you like to make, we're happy to let you give it a shot, and as long as it's overseen by the food safety.
So you were able to taste test it to make sure that
I didn't taste test it.
Okay. Have you ever said that was a really good try, but let's try it?
I've said that.
Okay.
They are the world's best. Yeah.
Yes, they are.
That's the deal.
And pretty much all of our soups include it.
Mm-hmm. That just kind of makes sense.
It does.
I know that back in my way back, I got into the bar and restaurant business at a Lone Star Steakhouse over on East Washington there. In fact, I helped open that store, but then became manager shortly thereafter. But I was always impressed because we were cutting our own meat in the store at the time. I assume that, well, there are no more Lone Stars, but I assume that like Outback still does that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's all the meat trimmings would then go into a grinder. That became the chop steak, or it would become the the baked potato soup that would have, we had a little bit of ham in it. And then we also had a steak soup. So that, I mean, you were not throwing things away.
Well, we do the same thing in the back of our store because if you have a ham, and someday we may have to have this show at one of our stores and we can
Just
actually
get meat, man.
go over that. You know, he still sends us letters. I can't really talk about that because I really don't want to brag too much. But
No.
He's a great guy. But to take the ham, we do a huge business of selling just the slices, just like the very front. We call them center cut slices. The center part of the ham, the nice big moon shaped ham slices. We'll put those in a package and sell them. And then as you get further back in there, there's more trimming that's necessary. So that's the meat we use to make sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cubes that are left over that you really can't make into slices. I think it would shock you to know how many hundreds of pounds of ham salad we sell in a year.
I believe it.
Anyway,
Because you've got coolers there that have ham salad and your sides and
then when we're done all the way down to the bone, we'll put the bones in the cooler.
dogs.
Dogs don't really thrive on cooked meat. Just as an aside, but no, people. We'll stockpile them, and then in the fall when the green beans come in, we can't keep them in stock. And people call up and say, "Can you hold one for me?" Because they're flying out the door. So every part of the ham that we get, not just the ones that we sell to the customers, but the ones that we process in the store, every part of it.
just how much you get for a ham bone?
When we have a lot of them, we'll sell them to you too for $5.
Okay.
But when they're hard to get, $3.99 a pound.
That's fantastic. I'm so impressed. Now, did you say that you're a libertarian, or did Bob say?
I said I outed him.
Yeah.
Although I don't think it's a big secret.
Yeah. No, we don't let many episodes go by without talking a little.
Okay.
And what led you to be a libertarian?
Anyone who this is, I want to be careful what I say. If you toe a party line, I really think you're not thinking for yourself, and that disappoints me. I mentioned I had a broadcasting degree from IU, but because broadcasting wasn't a real strong major, I had to have another almost double major, and mine was in political science. So I got to study a lot about politics and the behaviors and voting and all that's involved in that. And I have to say that our two-party system has not helped our country.
So it fails.
And so I'm not ashamed to say now today that there's never a presidential election that I haven't voted independent.
I see.
Or third
Do
party.
you have a favorite this time?
I don't see anybody.
Now, did you vote for Gary Johnson last time?
I did. But the one that really got me excited was Ross Perot.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got a lot of people excited.
I really
19% of
thought
us.
he had a chance.
Mhm.
And I think it was his pick for vice president that doomed him.
Well, he stopped his campaign and restarted it.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
But you're right. That at least opened the door. I remember
Stockdale was such a hero.
he was a hero, but not that good on stage.
No.
So who was John Anderson in 1980? So trying to think. Yeah, alternative candidates that have had good showings. Anderson, I think he ended up with about 2 or 3%. But yeah, Jim, I got to tell you, I could not have been more disappointed in 2016 when Republicans were running Donald Trump, and he certainly has his negatives, and Hillary Clinton has a lot of negatives. And we had Gary Johnson, a very popular former governor of New Mexico, and his running mate was Bill Weld, a very popular former governor of Massachusetts. And the fact that people would still ignore them, I don't know how to get over that hump. I mean, I thought that was the best chance libertarians were ever going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And they were cast aside. I'm like,
Well, you can see the No Labels outfit,
right.
who are getting a lot of media. But they're waiting to see if it's a Trump Biden conversation or bout, another return bout, and so time is not on their side.
Yeah.
And state laws are difficult and to get on ballots. And, they're going right up to right up to the cliff, right to the edge of jumping or not. And that's really difficult to have a national campaign.
So on gerrymandering and ballot access controls are, they're obviously designed to keep their parties out of it.
They're definitely hurdles.
So let me ask both of your opinions on this. When it's all said and done, will it be Trump and Biden that are the nominees, or will something happen at one of those two conventions where they pull them, they do a strip and insert, kind of like they do in the legislature? So are these guys just vehicle bills for somebody else, or are those really going to be the two nominees?
I'll go first and say we won't. Yeah, that's the only way that our two-party system is going to survive is if they stick to their guns this way. And it's a sad state of affairs.
I think there's an outside chance that Biden's replaced. They steps down and gives the reins to someone else, saying that I was the bridge, like I said I was going to be in the beginning, and it's time for a new, fresh look. And so I think out of the two, I think Biden's more apt to step aside.
Now, he has not been campaigning with Kamala Harris. Has he officially said that she is in as a running mate?
She is officially in as the running mate.
Okay.
They did campaign together this week in Virginia, and you'll see more and more of that. He may want to go. People talk about a basement strategy. It used to be a rose garden strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a basement strategy. But I think you're going to see more events in the rose garden. There's no active protests.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how they're going to go about it, is where he's separated from people.
So who did Donald Trump pick this time?
Honestly, I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, I think as a vice presidential candidate, I don't think it makes a difference with Trump because he's going to run the show.
Oh yeah. It's more of a question of whose career is he going to ruin?
Right. Yeah. I think someone like Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott in South Carolina, probably is probably the odds-on chance. And but don't rule out someone like a national security person like Robert O'Brien or Secretary of Defense. It used to be the CIA director. His name is not Michael.
Cohen? Not Cohen.
No. Regardless, the bottom line is it could be somebody political. There might be somebody that just doesn't want to run for president in 28, and all they end up being kind of a chief of staff. That you just never know. Never know at all.
So, Mike, libertarians, who I have not heard any big names seeking that nomination, and I'm starting to tick a little bit.
I think it comes down to money.
Yeah.
And
everything grew.
I have tried to, in my small way that I possibly can, just on the state level, to try and get some libertarians in a statewide office. But
well, our friend Mark Rutherford is now the chairman of the Libertarian Party in the state of Indiana.
He is
just this week. Mm-hmm.
Really? I need to tune back in. Welcome back, Mark.
Yeah, I sent him a text congratulating him.
So Mark was my boss. He was state chair when I was the executive director for the party 20 years ago.
He's now state chair.
Welcome back, Mark.
Yeah.
Actually, hey, Mark, I feel like that was kind of a high watermark for the party statewide. Mm-hmm. So
that's a good thing for the Libertarian Party.
It is.
Good friend.
Certainly. Mark knows politics, which Mark's dad was the political reporter for the Indianapolis News. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Mark kind of grew up in and around politics, and his dad was precinct committeeman. And
it's just doggone nice, too. He works hard and he's nice.
He does. We're going to have to have Mark down on as
absolutely
as a guest.
Popular guest, yeah.
So, with that, you have been watching the Merritt in the Morning Show with your host, Jim Merritt. and Brad Kloffenstein. We have been coming to you live today from Cafe Audrey's at beautiful Fort Harrison. Remember, they have beer and wine available. Hashtag food at the fort. And while you're hanging out in Lawrence,
And they have, what kind of beer here?
Alps Brau beer here, Jim. Look at that. Way to just allow it underneath.
What a second.
It is Alps Brau beer, so very, very Bavarian. Ask for it by name. We're also brought to you by Stockyards Bank and Trust. Locations 71st and Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, St. Francis Hospital. We'd like to welcome our new sponsor, the Honey Baked Ham Company. Locations.
So proud.
Thank you, Mike.
96 and Michigan
There
Road.
you go. We'll let you get your own commercial.
And East Greyhound Pass across from the Big Menards.
There you go. So thank you all for watching. I will edit this and we will have it up on our YouTube channel later on today and on the Merritt in the Morning Facebook page. Be sure to like us, follow us,
Sure.
share us. And Jim, where can we hear you in talking about what's your consulting company's name?
J&M Consulting. You can hear me for 15 minutes at WIBC 93.1 every Thursday morning. Could be 9:30 today. We're filming this today, and I'm on at 9:30 today. And so it's usually 9:30, 10:15, 10:45.
Conceivably, people could be watching you on Facebook and listening to you on the radio at the same time.
Lucky.
Wow. It is the miracle. So thank you all for watching. We will do this all over again in 2 weeks. Take care, and we'll see you soon.